What do you do when the person you trust most refuses to believe you? Daniel never thought his quiet life in Portland would turn into something so confusing. He had been married to Claire for 4 years. They were not perfect, but they were steady. Morning coffee together. Texts during work. Soft talks before sleep. It felt safe. That safety began to crack the day Claire's mother, Linda, arrived with 2 large suitcases and tired eyes. Linda had separated from her husband after 30 years. She said she needed space to think. Claire didn't hesitate to invite her to stay. Just for a little while, she promised Daniel. He agreed without complaint. Family mattered. He wanted to support his wife. The first week was calm. Linda cooked dinner and told stories from Claire's childhood. She laughed easily and thanked Daniel for opening his home. But slowly, the energy shifted. It started with long stares. Daniel would look up from his laptop and find Linda watching him. Not in a normal way. Something lingered in her eyes. He brushed it off. Maybe she was just curious. Maybe he was imagining things. Then came the compliments. "You take such good care of my daughter," she said one evening, her voice low. Not many men would do that. Daniel smiled politely. "I love her." "That's normal." Linda held his gaze a second too long. "You're different." He felt uneasy but said nothing. Days passed. Claire worked late often, finishing a project at her marketing firm. That left Daniel and Linda alone in the evenings. At first, they talked about simple things, weather, news, grocery lists. Then the tone changed. One night, Linda sat beside him on the couch while he watched TV. Too close. Their shoulders almost touched. "You look stressed," she said softly. "Marriage can be hard." "It's not hard," Daniel replied quickly. She tilted her head. "Every marriage has cracks." He shifted away. "We're fine." She smiled in a way that made his chest tighten. "If you ever feel misunderstood, you can talk to me." That sentence stayed in his mind long after he went to bed. The next morning, he told himself not to overreact. She was lonely. Maybe she didn't realize how she sounded, but the behavior continued. Linda began texting him directly instead of sending messages through Claire. At first, they were practical. "Do we need bread?" or "I'll start dinner." Then they became personal. "You seemed quiet today. Are you happy?" Sometimes people marry too young. Daniel stopped replying unless necessary. He felt trapped inside his own house. One Saturday afternoon, Claire went out with friends. Daniel stayed home to clean the garage. When he walked back inside, he found Linda standing in the kitchen doorway. "You work hard," she said. "I like staying busy." She stepped closer. "Claire doesn't always see how much you give." Daniel froze. "She does." Linda's voice softened. "Sometimes appreciation fades." The air felt heavy. He grabbed a glass of water just to create movement. "I should finish up outside." Before he could leave, she touched his arm lightly. "You deserve attention too." He pulled away gently. "Please don't do that." Her expression changed for a second. Then it returned to calm. "Don't be so serious." That night, Daniel lay awake staring at the ceiling. His thoughts raced. Was he misreading everything? Or was this something real? The next evening, he finally spoke to Claire. "I feel uncomfortable around your mom," he said carefully. Claire looked surprised. "Why?" Daniel chose his words slowly. "She says things that cross lines. Stands too close. Texts me personal stuff." Claire frowned. "She's just being friendly." "It doesn't feel friendly." Claire sighed. "She's going through a breakup. She needs support." "I understand that," Daniel replied. "But I need boundaries." Claire's voice tightened. "Are you accusing her of something?" Daniel hesitated. "I'm saying I feel uncomfortable." Claire folded her arms. "My mom would never do that." The conversation ended there. But the tension stayed. Linda must have sensed it. The following week, she became more subtle but more direct at the same time. Small comments when Claire left the room. Soft whispers like, "You can't ignore chemistry forever," or "Some connections are natural." Daniel felt anger building. He avoided being alone with her. He left the house early for work. He came home late. One evening, Claire fell asleep on the couch. Daniel covered her with a blanket. When he turned around, Linda was standing in the hallway. "You're a good man," she said quietly. "I love your daughter." She stepped closer. "Love changes." He felt his heart pound. "Not mine." She studied him carefully. "We'll see." That was the moment fear replaced confusion. The next morning, Daniel tried again with Claire. "This is serious," he insisted. "She's not respecting boundaries." Claire looked tired. "Daniel, you're making this bigger than it is." "I wouldn't lie about this." "I'm not saying you're lying," she replied, but her tone said otherwise. Daniel felt something break inside him. Not just trust in Linda, but trust in being believed. Later that night, as he worked in his office, Linda knocked and entered without waiting. "We can't keep pretending," she said softly. "Pretending what?" "That there's nothing between us." "There is nothing," he said firmly. She stepped closer. "You don't have to fight it." He stood up immediately. "Stop. This ends now." Her smile faded. "If you tell Claire again, she won't believe you." The calm confidence in her voice chilled him. He realized something terrifying. This wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, and he was alone in proving it. As Linda walked out of the room, she paused at the door. "Be careful, Daniel," she whispered. "Accusations can destroy families." He stood there in silence, heart racing. For the first time since she moved in, he understood the truth. This was not just discomfort. It was a trap, and if he didn't act carefully, he could lose everything. But how do you protect your marriage when the threat lives under your own roof? What if the more he tried to protect his marriage, the deeper he fell into danger? Daniel stopped feeling safe in his own home. Every hallway felt narrow. Every quiet moment felt planned. Linda moved through the house like she owned it, calm and patient, as if she knew time was on her side. He began documenting everything. He saved her text messages. He took screenshots. He avoided deleting anything. He even started leaving his phone on record when he knew Claire would be out. He hated feeling sneaky, but he felt cornered. Linda noticed the distance immediately. "You've been cold lately," she said one afternoon while Claire was at work. "I'm busy," Daniel replied without looking up. "Busy avoiding me?" she asked softly. He didn't answer. She walked closer, her voice steady. "You're scared." "No," he said. "I'm careful." Linda's eyes sharpened. "Careful people don't win. Bold people do." The words stayed in his mind long after she left the room. That night, Claire tried to reconnect. She reached for his hand in bed. "You've been distant," she whispered. Daniel wanted to tell her everything again. He wanted to show her the messages. But doubt held him back. If she already didn't believe him, would proof even matter? Or would it make him look worse? Instead, he said, "I'm just stressed." Claire kissed his shoulder. "It'll get better." He closed his eyes, wishing he believed that. The next twist came suddenly. One evening, Claire called Daniel while he was still at work. "Can you come home early?" she asked. Her voice sounded tight. His stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Just come home." When he arrived, the atmosphere felt wrong. Claire stood in the living room, arms crossed. Linda sat quietly on the couch, eyes red as if she had been crying. "What's going on?" Daniel asked. Claire looked hurt. "My mom says you've been making her uncomfortable." The room spun. "What?" he said sharply. Linda lowered her gaze. "I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to cause problems." Daniel felt heat rush to his face. "That's not true." Claire's voice shook. "She says you've been staring at her. Messaging her late at night." Daniel pulled out his phone immediately. "I barely reply to her." "Look at the messages." Linda spoke gently. "You deleted the others." "I did not." Daniel's voice rose without meaning to. Claire flinched. Why are you yelling? Because this is insane, he said. Linda wiped a fake tear. I knew this would happen. Daniel felt the ground shifting under him. This was exactly what she had warned him about. Claire, he said firmly, trying to stay calm. Please. Look at the dates. Look at who starts the conversations. Claire hesitated. She took the phone. Silence filled the room as she scrolled. Linda watched closely but stayed quiet. After a long minute, Claire looked confused. There aren't many messages. Exactly, Daniel replied. Because I kept it short. Linda stood slowly. I deleted mine. I didn't want drama. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. You deleted them? I panicked, she said softly. Claire looked torn. Why would you delete them? Linda's answer came fast. Because I felt ashamed. I thought maybe I misunderstood his kindness. Daniel felt anger building, but he forced himself to breathe. This is manipulation. Linda's eyes flashed for a split second before softening again. See? He's twisting it. Claire stepped back, overwhelmed. I don't know what to think. That sentence hurt the most. Daniel had always been her safe place. Now he was a question mark. Later that night, Claire slept facing the wall. Daniel lay awake, staring at the darkness. His chest felt tight. He wasn't just fighting Linda anymore. He was losing Claire. The next morning brought another surprise. Daniel received an email at work. It was anonymous. The subject line read, "Be careful." Inside was a single photo. It showed him and Linda standing close in the kitchen. The angle made it look intimate. The lighting blurred the space between them. Anyone looking quickly would assume something was happening. Daniel's hands shook. He knew exactly when it was taken. The day she had touched his arm. He had stepped away seconds later, but the photo froze. Only the closeness. Someone had planned this. He drove home immediately. Linda was alone in the house. We need to talk, he said, holding up his phone. She glanced at the image and didn't look surprised. Interesting angle. Did you set this up? She tilted her head. You're asking the wrong question. What do you want? He demanded. Her voice dropped low. I want honesty. I have been honest. Not with yourself, she said. He felt disgust rise in his throat. This stops now. She stepped closer but kept her hands to herself. You can fight me. Or you can accept what's happening. Nothing is happening. She smiled faintly. Then why does it scare you so much? Before he could respond, the front door opened. Claire walked in early. She saw them standing in the kitchen. Her face went pale. Why are you home? Daniel asked quickly. I forgot my laptop, she said slowly, eyes moving between them. Linda stepped back instantly. We were just talking. Claire didn't speak. The silence felt heavy. Daniel showed her the email. Someone sent this to me. Claire studied the photo. Her expression changed from confusion to hurt. It looks bad, she whispered. It's not what it seems, he said urgently. Linda stayed quiet, watching carefully. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I don't know who to believe anymore. Daniel felt his world cracking. He had tried to protect his marriage. He had tried to stay silent. Now silence was destroying him. Claire walked upstairs without another word. Linda turned toward Daniel slowly. You can't win this by fighting, she said softly. He looked at her with cold anger. I won't lose my marriage because of you. Her answer was calm. We'll see. As Daniel stood alone in the kitchen, one truth became clear. This was no longer about attraction. It was about control, and someone was determined to rewrite the story of his marriage. The only question left was, how far would Linda go to make him look guilty? What if the real danger wasn't temptation, but a carefully planned lie? Daniel stopped reacting. That was his first smart move. He realized anger made him look guilty. Silence made him look cold. So he chose something else, strategy. The morning after the photo, Claire barely spoke to him. She moved around the kitchen like a guest in her own home. Her eyes were tired. She didn't touch him. She didn't smile. Daniel felt the distance growing. At work, he couldn't focus. The image kept replaying in his mind. The angle. The timing. It was too perfect. Someone had placed that camera on purpose, and then it clicked, the small smart speaker in the kitchen. The security system Claire had installed last year. It had indoor cameras. They rarely checked them. His heart began to race. That evening, when Claire went upstairs to shower, Daniel opened the security app on his phone. He scrolled back through the footage from the day the photo was taken. His hands trembled as the video loaded. There it was, Linda standing in the kitchen. Alone, she adjusted something near the bookshelf. A tiny camera, hidden behind a plant. She checked the angle. She tested it. Then she stepped away. Daniel felt cold. Minutes later, he walked into the frame. Linda moved closer to him. She reached for his arm. He stepped back almost immediately. The footage showed everything, the full truth. There was no intimacy. No secret glance. Just her moving into his space. Him creating distance. Daniel sat back in the chair, breathing hard. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't imagining it. She had planned it, but proving it would change everything. Claire came downstairs later that night. Her eyes looked swollen from crying. "We need space," she said softly. Daniel stood up slowly. "Before we decide that, I need to show you something." She hesitated but followed him to the living room. He played the footage without speaking. Claire watched in silence. First confusion. Then shock. Then something else, betrayal. The video ended. The room felt heavy. "She set it up," Daniel said quietly. "I didn't want to accuse her without proof." Claire covered her mouth. Tears rolled down her face. "I defended her," she whispered. Daniel moved closer but didn't touch her. "You love your mother." "I understand that." Claire shook her head. "This isn't normal." "No," Daniel agreed. "It isn't." They both sat there, realizing something deeper was wrong. The next morning, Claire confronted Linda. Daniel stayed upstairs, but he could hear the voices below. At first calm. Then louder. "How could you?" Claire demanded. Linda's tone stayed soft. "You're overreacting." "I saw the footage." Silence. Then Linda sighed. "I was protecting you." "From what?" Claire cried. "From him," Linda replied. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Claire's voice broke. "He did nothing." Linda's answer came sharp this time. "You think you know him?" That sentence carried years of control. Years of influence. Daniel walked downstairs slowly. Linda turned toward him, her eyes no longer pretending to be weak. They were steady. Almost proud. "You went through the cameras," she said. "You forced me to," Daniel replied calmly. Claire stood between them, shaking. "Why would you do this?" Linda looked at her daughter for a long moment. Then she spoke words that changed everything. "Because I lost everything once. I won't let you make the same mistake." Claire frowned. "What mistake?" Linda's voice dropped. "Trusting a man completely." The room went silent. Daniel saw it then. This wasn't about attraction. It wasn't about romance. It was fear. Linda had been cheated on years ago. Claire once mentioned it briefly. Her father had left suddenly. It destroyed her mother. Now that fear had twisted into control. "You're punishing me for something I never did," Daniel said gently. Linda looked at him, and for the first time, her confidence cracked. "You all start the same way," she whispered. Claire stepped forward. "Mom, this isn't love. This is manipulation." Linda's shoulders stiffened. "I raised you alone. I protected you. And now you're trying to break my marriage," Claire replied. The truth hung in the air. Linda grabbed her purse. "You'll understand one day," she said coldly. She walked toward the door. Claire called after her, "Not like this." But the door closed. The house felt different immediately. Quieter. Lighter. And yet heavy with damage. Claire turned to Daniel slowly. "I'm sorry." He shook his head. "We both should have handled it better." She stepped closer. "I doubted you." "You were scared," he said. She touched his hand carefully. "Were you ever tempted?" The question was honest. Painful. Necessary. Daniel didn't hesitate. No. I was confused. I was uncomfortable. But I never crossed that line. Claire studied his face. She saw truth there. She leaned into him and finally allowed herself to cry, but healing wasn't instant. Days passed. Linda didn't call. Didn't text. Claire felt torn between relief and guilt. She missed her mother. But she also saw the damage clearly now. Daniel tried to be patient. 1 week later, another surprise arrived. A letter came in the mail. Handwritten. Claire opened it at the kitchen table. It was from Linda. Short. Direct. I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to protect you. I lost control. I'm leaving town for a while. Take care of your marriage. Don't make my mistakes. No apology to Daniel, just distance. Claire folded the letter slowly. Is this the end? She asked quietly. Daniel looked at her. That depends on what we choose now. Because even though the manipulation was exposed, something fragile had cracked between them. Trust doesn't break loudly. It cracks in silence, and now they had to decide, would they rebuild stronger? Or would the shadow of her mother always stand between them? Can love survive when trust has already been tested? The house felt peaceful after Linda left town, but peace did not mean healing. Claire moved through each day quietly. Daniel noticed the way she checked her phone, hoping for a message that never came. He also noticed the way she looked at him sometimes, as if still measuring the truth in his eyes. Trust had returned, but slowly. One evening, a storm rolled through their small Oregon town. Rain hit the windows hard. The lights flickered. Claire sat on the couch, hugging a pillow. Daniel joined her without speaking. The silence was heavy, but it was honest. I keep thinking about what she said, Claire admitted. About trusting a man completely. Daniel nodded. And what do you feel? She looked at him directly. I feel like fear almost ruined us. He understood. Fear had entered their marriage quietly, wearing someone else's face. Daniel took a deep breath. We can't control what she believes. But we can control what we build. Claire leaned back, thinking. Do you think she'll ever accept us? I don't know, he said softly. But we don't need her approval to stay strong. That night, something shifted. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just a small, firm decision between two people who were tired of doubt. The next week, Daniel suggested counseling. Claire was surprised. You're not angry? She asked. I was, he admitted. But anger won't protect us. Honesty will. They found a local therapist named Dr. Mitchell. The office was simple. Warm lights. Soft chairs. No judgment. During the first session, Claire spoke about her childhood. About watching her father leave. About hearing her mother cry in the kitchen at night. About promises that were broken. Daniel listened quietly then. He spoke about how he felt when Claire doubted him. Not accusing. Not defensive. Just honest. It hurt, he said. But I understand why you were afraid. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Weeks passed. Conversations became easier. They learned something important. Trust isn't built once. It is built daily. One afternoon, Claire received a call she didn't expect. It was Linda. Her voice sounded different. Softer. Less controlled. I'm in Seattle, Linda said. I've been thinking. Claire stepped outside to take the call privately. I know, she replied carefully. There was a pause. Then Linda spoke words Claire had waited her whole life to hear. I was wrong. Claire closed her eyes. I let my past control me, Linda continued. I saw danger where there was none. I pushed too hard. Claire's voice trembled. You tried to break my marriage. I know, Linda whispered. And I'm sorry. The apology felt real this time. Daniel watched Claire through the window as she spoke. He saw relief in her posture. When she came back inside, her eyes were wet but calm. She apologized, Claire said. Daniel nodded slowly. Do you believe her? I think she's finally facing her fear. A few days later, Linda returned home briefly to collect some belongings. This time, the atmosphere was different. No tension. No hidden plans. She sat across from Daniel at the dining table. "I owe you an apology," she said directly. Daniel met her eyes. "I appreciate that. I let my pain guide my actions," she continued. "That wasn't fair to you." He studied her face. The sharp confidence was gone. In its place was something human. "Regret. I don't hate you," Daniel said calmly. "But boundaries matter." Linda nodded. "I understand now." Claire watched the two most important people in her life sit across from each other without anger. It felt like a quiet miracle. Linda didn't stay long. She had decided to move closer to her sister in another city. A fresh start. Before leaving, she hugged Claire tightly. "Don't let my mistakes become yours," she said. Claire hugged her back. "And don't let fear run your life anymore." When the car drove away, the house felt lighter again. But this time, not from avoidance. From clarity. Months passed. Claire and Daniel rebuilt small habits. Morning coffee together. Evening walks. Honest conversations when something felt wrong. The memory of the camera incident no longer felt like a wound. It felt like a lesson. One night, sitting on their porch under soft summer lights, Claire looked at Daniel and smiled. "We almost lost this," she said. He nodded. "But we didn't." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for fighting for us." He kissed her forehead gently. "Thank you for choosing to trust me again." Love had been tested. Not by betrayal, but by fear, and fear, when faced honestly, loses power. Claire's phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "I started therapy today. It's harder than I thought. But I'm trying." Claire showed Daniel. He smiled. "That's a good sign." She replied simply, "Proud of you." As the night grew quiet, Claire realized something important. Her marriage didn't survive because it was perfect. It survived because they chose truth over suspicion. They chose communication over silence. They chose each other, and sometimes, that choice, made again and again, is what turns a painful story into a stronger love story. The storm that once threatened to break them had passed. But the real victory wasn't that the storm ended. It was that they stood together while it raged.